analyzing conflict information? Are digital devices making us any happier?
I know. You've heard it all before. Parents and teachers can get so preachy about the amount of time teens spend on digital devices such as phones and tablets. Adults don't seem to get what it's like to be a teenager. But at least in this instance, they might have a point. Research actually indicates that screen time reduces teens' sense of happiness and their connectedness to others.
What is reaching? Oh.
Psychologist Jean Twenge and her associates have studied the happiness and well-being of hundreds of thousands of 8th and 10th graders over 25 years. For the first 20 years of the study, the team observed that teen happiness seemed pretty stable. But then, beginning in 2012, happiness levels seemed to take a sudden dive. Why? The researchers suspect the culprit is increased screen time, because 2012 was also the year that the number of Americans who owned smartphones began to sharply increase.
Why do researchers think today's teens are less happy than teens in earlier generations?
As part of the team's research, they also examined teens' time on digital devices other than smartphones. And they found that young people who were spending more time on electronic communication and screens were less happy, less satisfied with their lives, and had lower self-esteem. On the other hand, they found that non-screen activities like playing sports, reading, and spending time with friends correlated with greater happiness.
What does the author think about teens and screen time? The Truth About Teens and Screens by
To many parents, it seems digital devices have suddenly invaded normal life. They worry about possible negative effects of screen time on kids. Sometimes that concern reaches a fever pitch, and screens are blamed for any problems in kids' lives. But does screen time deserve its bad reputation? Researcher Jean Twenge and her colleagues, who have been tracking kids' happiness for decades, seem to think so. They reported that teens' happiness scores plunged when smartphone ownership picked up in 2012. The team sees the dramatic change as evidence that time spent with smartphones caused the mood shift. But the connection between teen happiness and smartphone use may be merely coincidental. There could be many other explanations for the increase in teen moodiness that year.
The authors of Text 1 and Text 2 have different interpretation of Jean Twenge's study. What does the author of Text 2 think?
Another possible explanation for the connection between screen time and unhappiness is that teens who aren't feeling very happy are turning to digital devices for distraction. In other words, teen dissatisfaction leads to more screen time, not the other way around. What's more, the study by Twenge's team also found that teenagers who get a small amount of screen time, 1 to 5 hours per week, are actually happier than those who get none at all. This further illustrates that the connection between screen time and teen happiness just isn't that clear.
The author of Text 1 does not include this finding from Twenge's research. What does the author of Text 2 accomplish by including it?
Many concerned adults also worry that screen time will weaken social connections with family and peers. While some data supports this idea, the research results are mixed. For instance, one group of researchers in New Zealand found that online gaming and television watching was tied to teens feeling less socially connected. But when done too often, many non-screen activities, such as listening to music or sketching pictures, can also make a teen feel less connected. Furthermore, drawing on data from multiple studies, the Global Children's Aid Organization, UNICEF, asserts that social media strengthens existing friendships, and social networking can provide teens with greater feelings of connectedness to peers.
The authors of both texts refer to the New Zealand research study. How does the author of text 2 respond to the study? Challenges the
So is teen screen time good or bad? The truth may be that it's both. As with a lot of activities, too much of a good thing can be bad. But proclaiming that digital devices should be strictly avoided is probably an overreaction. What do you think?
What is the main difference between the author's conclusions about teens and screen time?
Teens and Work, What's at Risk by Ellie Legata. Read carefully. You only get one try.
Is an after-school or summer job in your not-too-distant future? If so, you're not alone. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, about one-third of 16 to 19-year-olds have jobs. Working may seem like a good way to earn money and gain life experience, but research reveals there are some factors to consider before you get a job.
What does the author think about the types of after-school and summer jobs that many teens have?
A job may also cause your education to suffer. Working teens often experience lower grades and standardized test scores. There's even evidence that teens who work are more likely to drop out of school. For instance, one study conducted by the University of Washington and UCLA found that high school students who worked more than 15 hours a week were more likely to leave school before graduating than non-working students.
According to the author, what are some risks of working as a teen?
Author points out that jobs take up the time that teens can instead even schoolwork, also because teens have jobs with less time to spend resting the job may harm their well-being.
How Working Can Work for Teens by Stephen Baxter. As you read,
With all of the benefits that can come from having a job in your teens, it's distressing to find out that the youth employment rate has been going down. This means non-working teens aren't getting the valuable life lessons that can come with having a job. They're also missing out on the self-confidence they can develop when they start making decisions about their own money. One major benefit of working is that it can help prepare teens for future careers. About 85% of teenagers tend to work in businesses that provide services, such as stores, restaurants, hotels, and recreational facilities. Though most young employees then go on to pursue careers in different fields, the experience they gain in service industry jobs is invaluable.
Their jobs require teamwork, organization, punctuality, and customer service. Skills that are valued in all industries.
As researcher Ronald D'Amico notes, working teens develop habits and attitudes that employers value.
The authors of Text 1 and Text 2 have different ideas about after-school and summer jobs. What does the author of Text 2 think?
It seems that the problems with teens working only crop up when they work too much. For instance, teens working more than 15 hours a week are more likely to quit school than non-working peers. However, the teens that are least likely to drop out are those who work 1 to 15 hours per week. Therefore, working actually sets you up to do better in school.
Which idea supports this author's opinion about teens and work? The authors of Text 1 and Text 2 have different interpretations of the concern about working teens getting enough sleep. What does the author of Text 2 think?
Sleeping is more beneficial than working for teens. Teens who work too many hours will sleep at school. Teens who don't know that who work 100 hours can get enough sleep. Working is more important than sleeping for teens.
What is the main difference between the author's conclusions about teens who work?
Unlike the first, all things are all great answers. The great idea is fewer hours. The first, okay, that's fine. Okay, bye guys. That's all for today. Please hit the notification bell, and I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So please thank you, and bye bye.